Have you ever wondered how to take something you're passionate about and turn it into, like a real career?
Yeah, definitely. It's something a lot of people dream of, but making that leap from passion to prosperity, especially in something like the arts, can be tricky.
Right, and today we're going to get deep into the story of Josephus Bartin. He's an artist who actually managed to do just that.
From what I've gathered, he was pretty much destined to be an artist, right? The sources we have say he was drawn to it from a very young age and saw art as this kind of language, a way to express himself and escape, I guess.
It's like he always had that spark, that creative fire. But I think the most interesting part of his story is how he went from, well, just loving art to actually building a successful career around it.
It wasn't always easy, Red, especially at first, just trying to, make a living from his art, pay the bills, all that.
Exactly. So that's what we'll be exploring today, how Josephus managed to turn his passion into prosperity. We've got excerpts from interviews, articles, even some of his own reflections, which should give us a pretty good picture of his journey.
It's almost like a masterclass in turning passion into profit, right? A real how-to guide.
So let's start at the beginning. He had this unique juggling act going on early in his career.
He was leading outsourcing teams in the Philippines and teaching art at the same time.
Yeah, and this was all before he spent 7 years in Bangkok and then finally settled in Chiang Mai, Thailand.
He really seems drawn to that part of the world.
I think so. He definitely connected with Thai art and culture, and living in these vibrant international cities really exposed him to a lot of different people and perspectives.
I bet. That must have influenced his art a lot, right?
It's super clear in his work. And speaking of influence, the sources make it pretty clear that this was also a time when he was really struggling financially. I mean,
Trying to make ends meet through commissions and teaching, probably not easy.
right. But he never gave up on this big vision he had, using his art to bridge cultures and create a space where artists could collaborate.
Though he wasn't just thinking about himself.
No, not at all. He was all about community and bringing people together through art, especially people from different backgrounds, even those from countries that historically maybe haven't gotten along.
And that's where this amazing initiative of his comes in, right? The one where he brought together international artists for this collaborative art program.
That's the turning point, I think. It wasn't just some feel-good project either. It brought him a lot of attention. Suddenly, there were sponsors, media coverage, more students than he could handle.
His studio basically transformed into this, creative sanctuary for artists.
And that's a super important lesson for anyone trying to make it in any creative field. Collaboration, building a network, it's huge. It's not just about the art itself. It's about connecting with people and building a community.
Yeah, that's definitely a theme that keeps popping up. But it's also interesting how Josephus didn't just stick to traditional art forms. He started this whole side hustle, right, with laser engraving.
Oh, yeah, the coasters and keychains. Sounds kind of random.
It does, but it really took off. I mean, think about it. He's living in Chiang Mai, a place with a ton of tourism. Everyone loves souvenirs, right?
Makes sense. And the sources mention how his designs often had this deeper meaning, so people weren't just buying any old keychain.
They were buying a piece of his art, a little reminder of something that resonated with him. Smart.
Really smart. And that's a really important takeaway for any artist listening. It's okay to think outside the box, try new things, maybe even find another way to monetize your art that isn't just selling paintings or sculptures.
Like diversifying your income, which seems to be exactly what Josephus did, because on top of the engraving, demand for his artwork started increasing too, right?
Absolutely. Collectors were taking notice. He was getting bulk orders for the engraved stuff, and then investors got interested in his big art community project.
So it was like everything started coming together at once. He went from struggling to make ends meet to building real wealth.
And creating this self-sustaining ecosystem for young artists, which I think was always part of his goal. I just picture him now, in his Chiang Mai home. The sources mention it's covered in murals, all done by him.
It's come full circle. It really shows you can achieve both creative fulfillment and financial success. But it's also about resilience, right? Like sticking with it even when things are tough.
Totally. And that's something I think people often forget. Passion is great, but you also need that grit, that determination to keep going when things get hard. And Josephus definitely had that.
Yeah, he definitely embodies that whole hustle mentality, but in a way that feels very authentic to who he is.
And I think that's ultimately why he was so successful. He was true to himself, to his art, and he was also incredibly savvy about building a business and a community.
His story actually reminds me of something. I was reading about this concept called ikigai.
Ikigai, what's that?
It's a Japanese idea that roughly translates to a reason for being. It's this intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for.
Okay, that makes sense. So Josephus found his ikigai through art?
Yeah, it's like he managed to blend all those things together. And I think that's what makes his story so inspiring. It shows you that it is possible to live a fulfilling life doing what you love and also be successful financially.
Absolutely. And that's a message I think everyone needs to hear. Especially if you're an artist or a creative person, you don't have to choose between your passion and paying the bills.
And the key takeaway here is that Josephus wasn't just a talented artist. He was also an entrepreneur, a community builder. He took a multifaceted approach to his career, and that's what ultimately led to his success.
So here's a final thought for all our listeners. Think about your own passions and skills. Could you combine them in new and interesting ways, maybe even with the help of others, to create something truly unique and impactful? What's your ikigai?
It's definitely something worth exploring.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back next time with another deep dive.
See you then.